Because if you say that getting the money is the most important thing, you will spend your life completely wasting your time. You'll be doing things you don't like doing in order to go on living, that is, to go on doing things you don't like doing, which is stupid. Better to have a short life that is full of what you like doing than a long life spent in a miserable way.
Welcome to Outgrown podcast, everyone. It is episode 8 and also the first episode of audio only. How about that, huh? I live in a very noisy neighborhood, so you're going to hear trees rustling from the wind. You might hear a neighbor sing to her cat in the stairwell. You might hear honking. People screaming, hopefully not negatively. I hope that they're screaming in a positive way. But today's episode is audio only. My camera is, as you've probably noticed from every single episode so far, that the camera keeps stopping on me, and it's getting frustrating, guys. It's getting quite frustrating. So I've decided that I'm going to just do an audio-only episode because I haven't done one of those before. And, normally podcasts are just audio. You don't throw video in there as well. I just decided to do that because, me. No. I do it because I'm a very physical person, like gesture-wise. I'm very animated, and I feel like I've got very strange facial expressions, and, with this whole comedy thing, you kind of want to utilize all the tools that you've got. But today is just a little bit different because of my lack of trust in my camera. I'm currently looking into getting a different one, and also today's episode is actually pretty damn heavy. And I shouldn't actually say the word heavy, because heavy just makes it sound really intense and not approachable and not enjoyable. But I promise it will be enjoyable. It's going to be quite a heavy topic in terms of content. And this is a nice way of me talking about it because I'm sitting on the couch right now and I'm super comfy and it's great, just sitting out and just chilling. I've got the microphone stretched over here. I'm just sitting on the couch, just having a good time. I've got my notes in front of me, so there won't be any weird eye contact where I'm just staring at a screen, just trying to remember what I want to say. Today's episode is about escapism. Now, escapism is a topic that I started digging into a while ago. It was a couple of weeks ago I started thinking about it. But it's something I've also, kind of had in mind over the years, but I've never really took the time to really sink my teeth into research around it. And the more that I kind of dug into it this week, the more overwhelming it became. Like like everything in life, it's not really black or white or left or right or wrong. It's all just very gray and confusing and interesting and complicated. But the weird thing about it, it's about balance, right? Like the escapism, basically, I should define it first before I go any further. Escapism is the tendency to seek distraction and relief from unpleasant realities, especially by seeking entertainment or engaging in fantasy. Now, there are a lot of forms of escapism. Just if you're not familiar with the whole concept of escapism, it basically is things like playing video games or listening to music or watching a movie, socializing with friends, reading a book, go on vacation, sleeping, dreaming, painting, or the most common one of all, consuming those drugs and alcohol, those, Mother Nature's drugs, Mother Nature's, liquids, that's a nice one. So weird. It's not just liquid. You can get... Okay, move on. Stop it, Aaron. Go back. But what a lot of escapism, where it comes from, is often from extremes of the escapism. It's not necessarily a bad thing to play a video game or to listen to music or watch a movie, but the extreme part of it is definitely an issue. Addictions are, a form of escapism. It's smoking, drugs, alcohol, gambling. Like, they all kind of stem from this, like, inner void of self. It's very determined by, like, your level of self-confidence and self-esteem. And what it always comes down to is balance and moderation. And isn't that the answer that none of us want to hear? Like, how does that vague piece of advice work to so many different types of people? People are so diverse by nature, and the advice itself just kind of seems, well, pointless. Because balance is different to everyone, right? And, oh, thanks, street cleaner. I hope you're doing well out there. I don't know if the microphone picked that up. But, like, balance is so different to everyone. In the same way that people engage in, periodic escapism and, like, in so many different forms. I might play video games where you might be reading a book, or maybe you're socializing with your friends a lot, and you maybe not spending as much time doing that self-reflection and analysis. And the whole part of it is understanding what your attitude and what your intention is with that escapism. Are you trying to get away from understanding your own truth and what your personal fulfillment should be? Are you escaping from your hard day to just enjoy the simple thing of playing Red Dead Redemption 2 or watching a horror movie? It's fun. It's fine. It's totally not a problem to indulge in these little things because, everyone has personal interests, and it gives people identity, it's creativity, it's inspiration. Like, the way our world is just overwhelmed with so many amazing characters and stories and platforms for people to express themselves. It's fantastic. More to the conversation, the better. But what the point about escapism that I want to talk about today is that the conversation that you shouldn't be dulling your own conversation. You shouldn't be throwing yourselves at journeys and adventures of others more than your own. And today we're going to be breaking down this topic in kind of 3 parts. It was quite difficult to really wrangle my thoughts around escapism, and the more I kind of dug in and researched it, I realized that I wanted to categorize, this whole topic, because it is a very complicated topic, and I want to really explore it in an intellectual and in an interesting way. Why else would you be here? So, part 1 today is about escapism in fiction, or the way that humans have talked about escapism in our fictional worlds that we create, or maybe even the escapism that fiction tells about ourselves and our own lives. Growing up, my friends and I, we were very oddly fascinated with Arnold. Yo! I don't even have to say his last name. Arnold Schwarzenegger. What a man. What a guy. Like, the Rock of our time, of his time, Like, oh, man. And my friends and I, we would just binge his movies, and oh, we would laugh. Like Commando, Predator, Eraser, True Lies. Oh, all fantastic movies, and all movies in which he was the leading man, like the action hero with the fantastic one-liners. Like some of my favorites were in Eraser, he shoots an alligator, I think it is, and he is like, your luggage. Your luggage. Oh, and another good one is in Commando. He's there's this guy, and he's like, oh, I like you, Sully. That's why I'm gonna kill you last. And then he's hanging him off a cliff, and he's like, remember, Sully, when I promised that I would kill you last? Yeah, you did. I remember that. I lied. Splat. Ah, what a classic. You know, or another really good one from Predator. Knock, knock. That is an actual one-liner that he used. He basically says knock, knock just after blowing through the door of a little house in the jungle. Very clever. Very clever there, Arnie. But why was I fascinated by him? Did I want to be him? Did I want to be the leading man? You know, maybe it begs the question, do we all want to be the leading human of our own story? You know, are we the hero? And I think I enjoyed the movie for, like, you know, because it's just funny. You know, like, it doesn't need to have this extravagant reason. I think it just made me laugh, the one-liners and how corny it was. But then when you think about escapism, and you think about the way that humans tend to draw themselves to media in order to, you know, quote-unquote escape their own life, it's like, well, what is the intention behind it? Because watching movies or reading books isn't inherently escaping. I mean, we're creative people, and like any form, things can be addictive. Drugs, alcohol, sex, gambling, it's all habit forming. And if you're not careful, you can, you know, watch too many movies or watch too many TV shows or binge too much to a point where you're neglecting your own adventure for the sake of enjoying a fictional one. You know, like, just because there's lots of really good ones out there, you know, people are living good lives out there, it doesn't mean that you shouldn't be living yours and making the most of yours. And I think a lot of that kind of gets tied back into, like, social media, for example. You know, we're so used to just having so much stuff just thrown at us from all our friends and family that it feels like, oh, I've lived for the day today. I think that's enough living today. It's like, no, you just watch Sharon just go hand gliding. You can't just watch Sharon hand gliding and then decide that's your day. Oh, that's done and dusted. I'm all done now. No. And now, this is when the topic gets kind of interesting, because as I was researching escapism, I didn't want to just talk about escapism as its definition, and because that's not interesting, I needed to connect it to a broader truth. And I really stumbled across this kind of broader truth when I came across something called the hero's journey. Now, to give you some background of what the hero's journey is, in the 1900s, there was an American professor of literature. His name was Joseph Campbell, and he spent a lot of his career traveling the world and studying myths and legends. From his, like, lifelong analysis, he realized that there was, like, this certain story or trend that, like, all heroes and heroines seem to have, like, the same adventure over and over and over again. You know, Harry Potter, Frodo, Katniss, even going into more religious stories as well. There seems to be this core adventure that just seemed to just translate into every single story in the same way. And so he basically observed it, he constructed this graph, which I'll put on the screen right now. Boom! And he called it the hero's journey. He identified the structure in his book, A Hero of a Thousand Faces, which kind of explained that every hero went through this same adventure where they were beckoned from their ordinary world to an extraordinary one. And it all starts with a call to action. Like Frodo is beckoned to carry the One Ring to Mordor. Harry Potter is just a normal boy who lives under the stairs, and then suddenly he gets a letter from a magical school beckoning him to a different, extraordinary one. Katniss Everdeen, she finds it. She's in this, what's seemingly like established as a normal world, where she is just part of this normal world, and then she is beckoned to a different adventure. The same way that every other character in heroes and heroines, they are brought forward, and quite interestingly enough, often guided by an older helper figure like Hagrid or Gandalf or what's his name, Haymitch, or in Hunger Games. They lead them to a greater purpose, and sometimes they offer them like cool swords or wands or some sort of magical thing. They're like, here you go, you'll like this one. It's like, oh, look at me, I'm not good enough to be a hero yet. Oh, you'll get there. I have faith in you. Oh, thanks, old weird man. How do you know that I'm here? I'm just part of this small tribe. I'm just hanging out and having a good time. Why me? I see something great inside of you. Oh, really? Oh, that's surprising. I just do farm work for my dad. This is quite a surprise. But they get called to a greater purpose, and they go out and they fight through trials, and they fail along the way, and they potentially even die along the way, but they're reborn because they eventually succeed, and they pick up that magical weapon or whatever they need to do, and they finally conquer that ultimate evil. And then after that, they always return back to their normal world as a different person, the hero. Now, the way that Joseph Campbell established it, he kind of structured. There's different forms. I'll put up on the screen a lot of different examples of how he actually structured the hero's journey itself. And I know I said this is an audio only version, but I'm also posting this on YouTube, and I can show you things, and I can show you graphs. Look how informative I am. But as you can see in one of the graphs, it talks about separation, initiation, and return. The hero starts off in their home, their seemingly ordinary world. They get separated or kicked out or booted off into their adventure. And the adventure has challenges along the way. With the helper and armed with something, they finally conquer the evil. And and finally initiated from being an average human to hero, they then return home to share those rewards. They take home the gold. They take home all that cash, money, or whatever they need, whatever is meaningful. Now, if you want to learn any more about this, which I really recommend, I'll post some links in the description of this video or in this podcast audio, or wherever this thing you're listening to. I'll put some links in so you can you can read up more about it, because it's really interesting. It's definitely something that, as I was digging into the topic of escapism, I found myself connecting a few dots together. And you might be thinking, Aaron, what does this have to do with escapism anyway? It's like, well, what was interesting about Joseph Campbell's research was that the result of it was that he linked this trend throughout all of the fiction, all these stories that we're so familiar with, to our own lives, to us as human beings. We create that fiction, and ultimately it has to be a mirror of ourselves. I mean, we aspire to be that hero. We're born into a normal life. We go through childhood. In this seemingly ordinary world, we go through adolescence, when we start to realize start to come to terms with things and start to build our tribe. And then suddenly, we go off to university and we try to, to chase a purpose, a greater purpose. We want to have guides to have us along the way. We want to learn from people. We want to learn from our family. We want to learn from our role models and the people that really mean the most to us. And yeah, we fight battles along the way, and we all, we all suffer. We all are defeated sometimes, and we all hope to be that hero of our own story. And, I get it. It's very easy to absorb a fictional hero that lasts for like 2 hours. But I also feel like while we escape to that fictional reality, it then almost presents a false sense of timing for our own journey. I mean, like for 2 hours, just for you to observe a character develop so quickly, and then to see, montages of characters, Rambo running up the stairs. It's like, oh, look at him go. Oh, mate, look at him go. He is just such a brave individual. Oh man, he's really working through those things. And I think it kind of warps our patience. I think it warps our sense of what it means to work hard for something and to understand that failure is required in order to learn how to do better for next time. I mean, even think about the TV show 24. I don't know if anyone listening has seen 24, but basically it was this TV show with Keith Sutherland, and he played this character called Jack Bauer, very American, and he was the action hero, the terrorist fucking fighter. Yeah, I'm gonna take out those terrorists. God, it's such an early 2000s show, isn't it? Gosh. Man, times have changed. But the structure of the TV show was that it all functioned in real time. So it was a commercial hour television show, which means it was around 45 minutes when you take away ads. And basically there was a countdown clock, and it counted every second of the entire TV show. So every second of real time correlated to a real hour in the TV show. So like even when you went before a commercial break, the countdown clock would still be ticking, and then it would have proceeded forward as soon as you came back from commercial. And watching that show was so intense because so much would happen in one episode, 1 hour. There's so much controversy would happen, because when you're trying to, develop a TV show, you want to make sure that the start of the story has a clear act one, and then this middle, and you're building tension, you're building conflict, and then you're ending it with a cliffhanger for people to come back to. And it tend to be quite convenient in places. It would end in a very cliffhangery way that you're like, oh mate, really? Every hour just ends perfectly with the most ultimate cliffhanger to lead you into the next episode. Man, what an intense 24-hour day. It just so happens that so much just keeps happening. I just can't wait for the next hour. That's not reality. I'm not anxiously waiting for the next hour. Sometimes I just want to stay in bed and not move. I don't want to move and try to make sure that every hour is that intense. And it just and I think what bothered me the most, I know this seems strange, but I just wanted to see Jack Bauer, the main hero, just take a piss. I just wanted him to urinate in a bush while he's rushing to get to the next threat. Like, it's not real. I mean, like, I want to see him, in an awkward place, I want him to, try and open a door, but he fails the first time. He tries to open the fridge, but he opens it from the wrong end. It's like, oh no, if you put that in, I'm like, oh, well, that's happened to me a few times. Sometimes you just make stupid mistakes, and I just wanted him to be a bit more fake. Not fake. I guess I just wanted him to fail. That's a better F word. I wanted him to fail. I wanted him to be, He was fake, and actually, and I wanted him to be more real. That's a better word. Language. And like, it's just, when it's trying to be a show that presents itself as real, and there's like, I think it warps your perspective. And I think, obviously, like, the characters that we see in fiction are just so much more extravagant and big, and they talk like they're all theatre actors, just all hanging out, so dramatic. I mean, obviously, I get that it depends on the thing that you're watching, but it just seems like these characters that we put into movies and we glamorize, they have to be exciting, because otherwise you're going to turn it off after like 5 minutes. Like, we're so boring in comparison, and that's fine. Some of us are more exciting than others. And like, you don't need to be anything. All you have to be is yourself. You don't have to be the characters that you watch in TV shows or movies. Like, our stories are actually way more powerful when they're yours, when they're just real, And what I find interesting about the hero's journey, and how it connects into escapism, I feel it helps to explain how we narratively insert ourselves into the fiction, and how we kind of see it as a reflection of our hopes and our dreams and our fears, and why we actually escape to it in the first place. I mean, it's very easy to feel inadequate from the heroes that you love so much, right? Like, gosh. And I also feel like, part of the hero's journey, which was obviously really compelling and interesting, but there was just something about it that just irked me. And I think it was the term "the hero's journey." That's like the whole point of like how you're the hero of your own story. And I think in a sense you are, but I think it's more complicated than that. And I think you're a hero of your own story. I don't think you should be the leading hero. I don't think you should be, Arnie, whacking off one-liners and standing alone against evil. I mean, it just seems egotistical, to say that you're the only hero of your story, when so many people, like your life and who you are, is a combination of everyone that you've ever met and spent time with. So ultimately, I feel like saying you're the hero is just kind of narcissistic. Like, when everyone in your life has contributed to you, like my mum is a hero of my life. Or like Pip is a hero of my life. Edie's a hero of my life. Olivia's a hero of my life. There are so many heroes of my life, of, friends who have come and gone in and out of my life and will continue coming in and out of my life. But they still hold this intrinsic value that contribute to the foundation of who you are. And I think that is more powerful than saying you're the hero of your own story. I mean, you're not Arnie, and you're not Iron Man. You're not even Thor. I think that a better analogy that I've been enjoying is this idea that you're not necessarily Iron Man or Thor. You're like the cool bystander that spouts off something witty as like the hero runs past. Like, what we are? Oh my gosh, you know what we are? We're Stan Lee. Oh my gosh, we're so Stan Lee. We're like the writer and the creator of our own universe. We're like the hero amongst many heroes. Like, inspiring others to stand up and fight, and like leading your own way as a hero of your story and their story. Like, that's really compelling. Oh my God, that's so interesting. But it's true, like, that's cool, and Stan Lee was badass. So we're all Stan Lee, all right? We're all Stan Lee. We're all creators and masters of our own relationship to our, well, I guess in a sense you are. You're a relationship to yourself, in your own universe, like, you are a hero. But remember that you're not the only hero of your own life. And I think that is more interesting than saying that you're the hero. And It's interesting. That's why I like doing this podcast. I feel like I'm learning so much, like the more I research into topics, and gosh, I don't know if I'm going to do this again because this is very content heavy, and I feel like I want to say the funnies, and I'm going off track now. Anyway, let's move on to part 2. Let's continue with the episode. Part 2 of escapism that I want to talk about today is numbing your reality. Now, the reason why I want to talk about numbing your reality is that while escapism can be fun and can be, really satisfying to involve yourself into a cool fictional world, too much escapism, like anything else, like drugs or alcohol, like too many things, like an extremist indulgence of things like drugs and alcohol, sex, gambling, even things like, getting all of your news information from one source, or, supporting one team only. How do you support the Yankees? You must be a psychopath. I can never, I'll never understand why anyone wouldn't support my particular team. How dare you only follow the ways of Christianity when there are so many different offsets of Christianity, including Islam and also Buddhism and Hindu and all of the other religions that exist in this world. Oh, man. You're not the hot shot of my story unless you believe in what I particularly believe. Okay, let's chill. All right, let's stop for a second here. Let's remember that there's lots of ideas around, and you can have too much of one thing. All right, like just a side thought before we get deeper into this. I've always thought patriotism as being one of the worst inventions of human history. Like, oh, my country is better than yours. Really? Why? 'Cause we're free. How? Really? How so? How are you free? Well, we're free to murder each other with weapons that we are free to carry in our pockets. Oh, wow. Oh, freedom. I don't know. I always see like really extravagant celebrations of patriotism. Like even in Australia, everyone's like, yeah, bloody Australia, mate. Fucking love this fucking country. It's like, well, you do have a lot of problems too. Like, I don't know if you're the greatest country, but maybe let's have some humility and remember that there are a lot of different countries. I just never understand the whole, like, we're the greatest country. We're the greatest. Anyway, I just feel like any extreme of anything is not good for you. And just like anything, escaping it, into a TV show or into movies or into anything it's not good. But in moderation, it's fine. I mean, if you're doing too much escaping, too much escapism into, let's say, a movie. If you're binging movies all the time, so let's say you work a 40-hour job, you come home, you're like, I just want to watch a movie, and you're watching movies the entire night long, and that's all you do. What defines you then if a major chunk of your life is spent numbing yourself from your reality and sinking into a different one? Do you think that's going to have mental conditioning on you? It's just avoidance at the end of the day. If you're escaping to get away from your story, you're deflecting. You are disconnecting. You are literally playing into the definition of escapism, of getting away from an unpleasant reality. Have you been putting off that self-reflection? Have you been putting off an introspective analysis of who you are and what you want to do with your life? I mean, it's important to understand the difference between active and passive escapism. Are you using it actively to get away from your personal truth? Or are you doing it just because it's, you've had a hard day's work and you worked a hard 8-hour day and you just want to come home and play some games, or you want to read a book? Like, there's nothing wrong with that, obviously. But there's an addiction that you can sink into. And another way of an interesting way of looking at escapism, and through another format of how we tend to use escapism to enjoy the hero's journey in our media. And it's called the suspension of disbelief. It's defined as a willingness to suspend one's critical faculties and believe something surreal, and sacrificing realism and logic for the sake of enjoyment, end quote. I got that from the interwebs. But what does it mean? What does it mean to have a suspension of disbelief? What does it mean to suspend one's belief in something obviously not real, and sacrificing your obvious, realization that what it's not real? You're watching Harry Potter. If you let's say, for example, I was going to say Harry Potter. But what if you're watching a horror movie, for example, and are you going to be sitting there thinking, oh, mate, boring. Oh, mate, that's not real blood. It's like, this is not real. I'm not even scared. It's like, no, you boring ass. Motherfucker. No, you accept the universe that they're trying to give to you because that's how you enjoy it in the first place. And it doesn't have to be horror even, Do you know someone in your life that loves to talk through movies? Give their own little personal commentary as you're watching? My mum is like the classic commentator. Like, even like during a comedy movie, she'll be like, oh, that was a bit funny, wasn't it? Oh, that was a funny joke, wasn't it, Jim? Mum, you're taking me out of the disbelief. Come on, don't bring me out of it. I'm trying to sink into the movie. I'm trying to accept the characters that they're giving to me. And even like video games, for example. A lot of talk about lately is this whole idea that, do video games make us violent? And how do we suspend our disbelief in video games? I don't think personally that video games cause people to be violent. I think people are inherently violent, and there is a lot of stimuli that exist in this world, and it's a mixture of nature versus nurture. And also, I have read up about studies, because that's what you do for podcast research. And they've said no, they haven't found any correlation between violence and video games. It's just violent people. It's like saying that religion is violent. It's like, no, if you're a violent person and you're reading particular pieces of religion, it's gonna, lead you to do fucking shitty things. Like, for example, like every single person who has played Sims has absolutely taken that ladder out of the pool. I'll put money on it that every single person listening to this who has played Sims has taken the ladder out of the pool and watched their Sim just struggle in the pool until they die. You monster! You absolute monster! How could you? Or if you've played like Roller Coaster Tycoon, like I bet you've definitely removed that, or removed a track, or like built it really high and just let it just soar off the end. And why wouldn't you? You know it's not real. That's a suspension of disbelief that you can enjoy. You know it's not real, so you have fun. That's why we're like villains. Villains are fun because, we're not going to actively support someone who's evil. We just like it because we know it's not real. I like the Joker. If the whole world's going crazy over the Joker movie, it's not because, people just really dig the Joker's vibe. I just really like what he has to say about things, I think the Joker is just a role model for me. No, it's a fascinating character, and we know it's not real. In a way, we want the Joker to succeed because he's so inherently insane and flawed, and it's just interesting, you know? And like video games, they can't have real correlations because I can tell you right now that I've played some Farmville, but I absolutely haven't randomly gone round to a friend's place and watered their house plants. Hey mate, just come on around. What are you doing in my house, mate? Oh, I've just been playing some Farmville today, and mate, your water lily looks like it needs a bit more watering, hey? Get the fuck out of my house. Well, like, I'm not gonna shoot you with a gun that I don't even have in the first place, or that I fucking hate, you know? Like, the escapism for enjoyment of a fictional world is so natural. You've suspended your reality because you know this is your moment to enjoy something different that you know that you don't have. Why do people play Red Dead Redemption in the Old West? It was a long ass time ago where people were dirty in the grossest places. The sewage system didn't even exist, and people were just being gross and murdering everyone. Like, no, you enjoy it because it's a fantasy world. It's something that you don't have in your life. So it's like this way of like experiencing something different, but also knowing that it's not like morally corrupt or like, you know, or like part of your like daily existence, you know? And on the other side of all of this fiction that I do want to address within this part of like numbing your reality is reality TV. All right, so reality TV, aka partly scripted, partly real, whatever your definition of real is. And I mean, it's such a weird format, reality TV, because I feel like it's just a home for people to feel better about themselves by just watching other horrendous human beings. You know? Like, it's so inherently, like, so inauthentic. Because when you think about the format of a reality TV show, let's for an example, let's imagine a cooking show, right? We've got, let's say, 3 contestants, and they're working away on a cooking show, and they're trying to make, let's say, I don't know, let's say they're making a cake. You know, they're all making a cake. I know I said cooking show, but they're baking away, they're making a cake, and you know, the contestants are going through it, and they're struggling through, and I know you can probably picture the episode already, and as they're going, like they have a cutaway, and the contestant is talking to the camera about how they feel about it all, and they're like, "Oh mate, you know, I don't know if I'm gonna make it or not. I mean, I've been working hard at this cake, but I just don't know if there's enough time." And then it cuts back to them in the kitchen. They're working away and they're stressing out. And the judge is like, "I don't know if Barry's going to make it in time. It looks like he's really stressing out. I mean, who knows if he's going to make it?" Go back to the cutaway. Who knows what's going to happen? Dun, 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 dun. But it's all fake. And when you think about that example. How do they shoot that? I'll tell you how they shoot that. They shoot the episode of the contestants doing the competition, and then afterwards, they tell them to retell the story of how that challenge played out, and then pretend like they don't know the outcome. Like, think about that the next time you watch any reality TV show where it cuts away to like a contestant or something who are like talking about like, "Oh, I just don't know what's going to happen. Oh man, like what have I done? Oh." Like, just think about that. Think about that is retold after it's already happened. How does that play out in terms of the authenticity of it all? Like, just think about the camera and think about everyone that it takes to make anything. So the next time you're watching a reality TV show, no matter what kind of format it is, think about the camera crew. Think about the audio guys holding the boom mic. Think about the lighting guys who are holding awkward panels of aluminium foil trying to reflect light back on the contestants so the camera could, make it look somewhat better. Think about all the awkward people just standing around with headphones on, and it just makes it weird. And also, I can tell you, as soon as there's a presence of a camera on human beings, they will never act naturally. I would know. They never act naturally. As much as the show tries to present itself in the most authentic way, or even as I try to present myself in the most authentic way, it's hard. I try to be as natural and honest as I can with you guys, but at the same time, I'm doing a podcast. I gotta be entertaining. I gotta keep your attention. Otherwise, you might as well just go listen to your boring friend. You have one in mind right now, which is what's so funny. I wonder which friend you just thought of. I want you to take a second to really think about the friend that just instantly came to your mind. The point is, it's important to realize the material of what you're escaping to, right? Reality TV is inherently fake, okay? It's a farce. It's not real. I'm not saying that I don't enjoy reality TV. Oh, you bet your bottoms I do. I enjoy Nailed It. It's a great show. Or some of the older ones that I used to be into. I don't know if anyone remembers the old school MTV, but if anyone watched Next, NEXT with a big exclamation mark at the end. Basically, a bunch of contestants would all just sit on this awkward bus, and then there'd be the opposite gender outside, one lonely asshole, or just waiting outside, waiting for the contestants to come out, and then they would go on a date one at a time. And if they didn't like the person, they would say next, and then the contestant would go back to the bus and someone else would come out. And as with every minute, they would get $1. And then if someone lasted the whole date, they would either have the choice to go on a second date with the person who's asking, or to take the money and go. Obviously, a horrifically morally corrupt show. But isn't it all just morally corrupt? And that's why we like it. And again, I think it plays into the suspension of disbelief. I don't know if all of us really think and know that it is reality. I think most of us have a pretty good sense that it's all, most of it is fake. But I have been surprised by the conversations I've had with people who have all said, oh, no, it's actually real. It really does happen. They really do cook that food. Oh, I swear, no, MasterChef is really good. You get to see some really real people just cook some food and really show their talents. Oh, really? Did you know that they also have fake chefs that cook all the food for them, and they just shoot all the things in between with the people they want to have on television? Oh, no, I'm sure that's not true. Oh, another really great show is Moment of Truth. Very American show. Basically, contestants come on and they do a lie detector test before the show, and then they come on the show and a host asks them questions and they say yes or no, and then they say whether it's true or false, and they have to get through as many truthful answers as possible, and if they get one wrong, they lose all the money they get. And every question has more money. And the best thing is that their family and their friends are there. And they just answer the most horrific question. They're like, have you ever cheated on your boyfriend? Other than the times you've already admitted. It's oh, okay, well, we've got some high caliber people here, obviously. Or the other one that is probably the definition of morally corrupt. is also something I would recommend people watching. Is 100% Hotter. Basically, three horrific human beings just judge a bunch of people from the UK, and they turn them, quote, 100% hotter. It's like, okay. And the worst part is they take their photo of the person on the show, and they take him out to the streets, and they show their photo to random people around the UK, and they're all like, give her a rating out of 1 to 10. They're like, I don't know, like 4, gross. It's like, oh my God. And the person's like watching the reactions of all these random people. It's like, oh my God, this is horrible. This is a recipe for like complete self-esteem issues. Like, what is happening? It's just so hilariously bad. But I'm feeling better about myself, just like watching other people treat others like shit. But then when you think about how that actually has an effect on you, it's so inherently negative. It's judging. It's cynical. And it's not a good thing to like absorb into your diet. And the same way that we think about food as a diet, the same way that we think about how we have a moderation of healthy food, and we make sure that we're getting enough sleep. There's also a mental and a media diet that we need to be mindful as well, and understanding that what you're absorbing and what you're telling yourself, including what you're reading or what you're watching, is all going to be affecting you. You know, with this whole Trump saga, I've been knee deep, I should say knuckle deep, in political satire. And I think a lot of people have. You know, this is a crazy time. So there's a demand for more voices talking about the outrageous nature of this insane president. But I think inherently, when you're absorbing a lot of that content, it's going to be really bringing a lot of negativity and cynicism into your life. And so it's really important to be mindful of that, in the same way that, you know, you make sure you maintain and you balance out your diet in terms of food and alcohol and sleep and even gambling if you do that stupid thing. It's important to realize that you do need a balance of it. Don't just watch 100% Hotter back to back every single day, or you're going to get issues. But what the point of all of this is that I can't tell you what a good balance is. I can't tell you, because I don't know what your escapism is. I don't know what your form of escapism is. And I don't know what balance is to you. Balance is different to everyone. So just ask yourself, is it worth it? Am I indulging in something too much? And the only person that can answer that for you is yourself. Now, this leads us into the third and final part of today's podcast, talking about escapism. Part 3, follow your bliss. That's right. It's called Follow Your Bliss. Now, the same man, Joseph Campbell, who wrote The Hero of a Thousand Faces and the whole mastermind behind the old hero's journey, he talked about this really fundamental part of the hero's journey, and it's actually inspired by Hindu philosophy as well. Now, it's the phrase itself, follow your bliss, is this idea that no matter what you do as the hero of your own story, it is really important to know what is your thing that you can't live without. Bliss isn't necessarily like a sensory overload of like, yeah, fucking smoke all the weed, bro. Fucking, I'm gonna blaze that bliss, blaze that bliss real hard. No, it is not about sensory pleasure and overloading on addictive substances. It is not about overdoing your pleasures. It's not about, it is about following the thing that you couldn't live without. It is your passion. It is the thing that gets you up in the morning. It's the thing that always you come back to at the end of the day. And why I find this so compelling within the hero's journey in relation to escapism is that it is, while, I want to talk about how important it is to, find, that moderation of escapism and understand of when is too far. It's also important to realize what you're actually escaping to and the value of what you're escaping to. Like, as I said before, like if you're indulging in too much cynicism and too much Trumpness, it can cause some fucking fatigue. It can get pretty weary. It can get quite a bit much. And you just kind of want a little bit of escape from it all. And it's fine. It is totally fine to have personal interests like video games or TV shows or movies. But it's also very important to keep in mind of what your bliss is and understanding what your bliss is. Now, with bliss, there is a sort of serenity to the concept of bliss. This idea that it is inherently who you are. Like, what is that deep impulse? What is your most fulfilling state? What are you most passionate about? Something that I've definitely come to terms with over the last few months or so is tying some dots together from my childhood to now. What was really powerful was I reflected back into what what I remembered to be the first childhood career dream. I was obsessed with Garfield. I was all about the Garfield. I just loved Garfield so much that I had a Garfield collection like you wouldn't believe. I think I counted over 100 items, including comic books, plush toys, little figurines. I even had a Garfield clock. And I remember my first dream I ever had was to be a cartoonist. I loved drawing. I loved being creative. And then past that, I did magic shows for my family, and I would charge 50 cents a pop. Get that business model. And I also loved doing drama and performing. And over the last few years, after, making these decisions throughout my life from university until now, going to university and realizing that, I came to this conclusion that I wanted to be behind the camera and that I wanted to tell the stories and construct the stories without me being present. But I understood that what is strange is that when I reflected back into what my passion was, I always loved being the performer. I always loved entertaining people and making people laugh. And even with Garfield, there was this love of an animation and of a comedy. And what I found really powerful was that after all this time, my entire adulthood life of me coming to terms with things and trying to figure out what I want to do, when I reflect back on that decision to go behind the camera, I think it was insecurity. I think it was little insecure Aaron just not wanting to give it a chance, not feeling good enough to give it a go, not feeling smart enough, not feeling funny enough, not feeling good enough to even attempt to do that. And at the same time, I do remember thinking as well that I don't want to suck up to people in auditions and have to brown nose people my whole life. And I think that's a very immature way of looking at acting. But I think I was just scared, and I think I was just making excuses. And what I've realized is that as I peeled back these layers of doubt and insecurity, I realized that there was this golden layer underneath that was always there since the moment I loved Garfield, or the moment that when I stood out on those stages and I performed to people. I loved just entertaining, and even recently, I've been thinking about getting into animation and doing my own drawings again. And there is this certain consistency, this core of self that I identified. And that is bliss. That is bliss. Your bliss is something that you can't live without. It is inherently tied to your identity. And so another piece of advice I remember listening to in my research was don't do what your parents tell you because they're telling you about security and not your unique brand of bliss. Good impression, Aaron. I told you I did impressions. So stupid. But what that quote... Oh, I'll just let it pass. All right, go on then. Go save that life, you paramedic. You para-hero. You're the hero of your journey today, aren't you? Yeah, you are. What I find interesting about that quote is how it plays into the intentions of the feedback and advice that is given to us externally. Not just from family, but from friends, your peers, and from your colleagues. Ultimately, the only way that you know your inner bliss is by realizing it yourself. And, I don't mean this sentence to be a dig at parents at all. Like, ultimately, they're gonna worry about you, and they're gonna want to make sure that you're safe, and they're gonna want you to be secure. And that's just what a parent does. But the only way that you know what your passion is by understanding and asking yourself those questions. The media wants to overload you with fictional worlds and characters so you don't think about your bliss. They want you to be a comfortable consumer just sitting on the couch, just watching Harry Potter movies over and over and over and over again. That's why the YouTube recommended page is so insanely updated all the time, because they want you to stay on the website. They want you to be continuously stimulated by material goods. They want you to be transfixed on social media. They want you to keep coming back because that means that the more of the attention is on them and it's not necessarily on yourself. So how do you find your bliss? What is the bliss? And this is where it comes back to the hero's journey. The hero's journey, if you recall, is there's a call to action. There's a call to adventure. There is this ringing phone that's just ringing over and over and over again. And on the other end of that line is something that you were meant to do. You were born. You were meant to do something. And I don't believe in destiny. I don't believe in fate. I really don't. But there is a certain sense of nature and nurture of the way that your DNA and also from your external conditioning, from your friends and from your family and from your experiences, that's all leads to your own personal truth. And that personal truth is on the other end of that line. It's waiting for you to accept it. It's waiting for you to pick up that phone and to take responsibility and to stop making excuses and to stop being that comfortable consumer locked on that couch, just waiting for something to come your way. And it won't come your way. You need to pursue it yourself. You need to understand that golden layer underneath. You need to listen to that phone call. You need to know what your bliss is, because that is how you're going to find true happiness, true fulfillment, and it will catapult you to be not even the hero, a hero of your story. And it's so important. And I really, really encourage anyone to really dig more into the hero story. I promise You'll get so much out of it, like I know that I have. And Olivia, a friend of mine, has recommended this to me in the past, and another one of my friends, Tash, has also recommended this to me, and they both speak the world about it. And the research that I've done around this topic of escapism and the way it ties into the hero's journey is so fascinating to me. And I know there's been a lot in this episode, and I know it's probably a lot to take in. And I'll probably have to listen to this episode a few times as well. It's been really helpful for me to do this podcast and to just sit on the couch and get all comfy and to talk about this concept that I've been looking into all week long. But I think at the same time, it's a powerful realization to understand that while fictional worlds are powerful and can inspire us as a civilization, it can also demoralize us to a point where we feel so inadequate and we don't want to take the time to pursue our own adventure, to take that call, to answer that phone, and to really chase your passion in a real way. Before I go, because I do want to wrap it up now, because I don't know how long this has been. It's probably been a long episode, Aaron. Gosh. I hope you've enjoyed today's episode. I do want to talk a little bit about the following week before we wrap up. But before we get to that, I just want to say I hope that you've got something out of this. I hope that you think about the three parts of escapism in fiction and how we see it in the media and how the media sees it in us. I hope you think about how there is a process of numbing your reality, the suspension of disbelief and the conditioning that does come from that. And also understanding what your bliss is and what the call to your adventure should be and is. I promise it's there. You just have to take the time to listen for it. Next week is going to be a bit of a strange week because there's a strange public holiday happening in Victoria, Australia. They have a grand final day on the 27th of September, and for some reason, because sport's important, they have a public holiday. People have literally time off so they can just watch a game. It's so strange. So weird. But anyway, my partner and I, Pip, are off to Gold Coast next week, which is super exciting. We're off to the old Surfers Paradise for a nice long weekend. There's still going to be an episode next week, but it's not going to be on failure. It's going to be another P-cast, which I'm super excited about. I've got some interesting things I'm going to talk about. I'm still kind of getting an idea of what I want to talk about, but it's going to be it's going to be in a video again. I hope that this audio episode has been enjoyable and informative, and I hope you're having a fantastic Friday. I look forward to seeing you next week in another PCast episode. And I hope you're feeling strong. I hope you're feeling fabulous. And fairly well.
Consider this question. What do I desire?